Age of Empires to Total War. Today I shall be playing as the Britons against 6 French teams at once. Why not 7, you might ask? Already done that. But before I reveal to you my fantastic Frankfest, it's time to go back in time. One last time. Back. Picture this. It's the early 2000s. Everything was perfect and Justin Bieber hadn't even been born. Probably. My sister and I were having a gay old time over LAN. When we weren't playing Heroes 3, we would be on Age of Empires 2 for hours with our kings and castles. Of course I always won. But games wouldn't end until the king was killed. Although harmless, he could run at terrifying speeds, scuttling about the map like a posh golem and hiding in the bushes, hoping that I wouldn't find him. But I always did. I took twisted delight in finding increasingly cruel ways of defeating her king. My personal favourite was to trap him in an arena against a battering ram. Then we moved on to fighting together against the AI. Those games would be long, full of sieges and assaults. One of us would hold them off for as long as possible. If we were lucky, reinforcements would arrive in time. It became a staple at LANs on an even larger scale. 4 of us against 4 bot teams. The size of those battles was incredible. And there would always be that person who stayed away from the fighting and tended to their crops or whatever. All the time we were refining our strategies, perfecting the early game routine, and finding the ideal setup to have a good, fun game that ultimately resulted in a win. I even found it fun to play alone against the AI. One day, I defeated a medium difficulty enemy. It unlocked an achievement. How about that? Then I tried against 2 enemies at once, and I got an achievement for that as well. For some reason I skipped 3 and moved straight onto 4 enemies at once, all teamed up against me. And I beat them as well. But the achievements didn't end there. They went up to 5, 6 and even 7 enemies at once. But 4 was hard enough. How could anybody possibly go up against 7? Many of you won't know what this game's like. A single medium difficulty enemy isn't hard. You can advance faster, get armies faster, and generally beat them without too much hassle. But 5 of them at a time? Wow. You'll defeat one army only for another to immediately come at you. And then another. And another. For every unit you make, the enemies combined produce 2 or 3. For every chunk of meat you harvest, they collect 2 or 3. And let's not forget the population limit either. That's just a single team, you're stuck at 200. While they can have over 1,000 units in the map at once. And they all want you dead. That's not fair. And the longer you play for, the more it moves in their favour. Eventually you can hold them no more and they begin pouring into your base, destroying everything in their way. There's nothing in first-person shooters to compare with that slow, painful, inevitable defeat that you get in real-time strategy games. You know you're beaten. They know you're beaten. But it'll still take another 40 minutes before they choke you completely. You're stuck doing everything you can to stay alive, building emergency bases in unexplored corners, stashing villagers in the hope they aren't found. Anything. All in the hope that your opponent will have to go to bed. Of course, you don't have that glimmer of hope when up against the AI. But I wanted those achievements. I'd invested a good amount of my life into this game. I was pretty good. Obviously not as good as the people in the comment section of this video, but still pretty good. So one day, I had an idea. I set up a game against 7 enemies, all teamed together, and I gave myself every advantage that I could think of. I used the original AI because it's easier. Played on Black Forest because you can hide away behind your walls, at least for a time. I had everything visible, because otherwise everything isn't visible. And so on. Of course, the greatest advantage I gave myself was to play as the British and to make the enemies French. But there was one last trick as well. I set the population limit to 25. In a game of villagers and armies, setting it this low would limit the AI. They'd buy up 25 villagers and wouldn't have enough left for anybody to attack me. All I had to do then was to find a way of defeating them with just a handful of units. I managed it, and today I'll recreate it, only against 6 enemies because I really want all of the achievements. Chopper. The first bit of the game was the same as normal. only a bit easier since I didn't have to think about building lots of houses. The important thing was to reach stone walls and to keep the enemies out for as long as I could. That, and to steal as many of the enemy's turkeys as possible. It's tradition. I didn't manage quite as many as in the Great Turkey Pillage of 2016, but it was enough to show that I wasn't messing around. The stone walls were researched and I quickly blocked everything up. One of my villagers suffered a terrible fate at the hands of 3 jaguars. Then all went well for a while as I gathered resources. And then, suddenly, my population went down with a serious case of the heart attack. This left enough space within my population limit for a tribe of monks to be created from the monkery. These 7 wise men then launched an attack on the purple enemy team. Monks have a special ability. They can convert enemies to your team. The problem is that this takes a while, and monks move slowly and don't have a lot of health. The first fight was a hairy one. They attacked me with swordsmen, my only weakness. I nearly lost a monk, but all survived this first encounter, and I even had myself a posse of converts to protect them from now on. I continued to steal troops and villagers from the purple side, building an army far greater than the population cap intended. But even this army wasn't going to win against a town centre filled with peasants, all firing arrows out. Luckily, I had one battering ram in my army, and he gradually bulldozed all of their important buildings, returning to safety once in a while for a repair. If he goes down, I'm doomed. It wasn't all fun and games. A throng of jaguars swarmed my villagers, and I lost a few, but I didn't care much about them. Of more concern were my irreplaceable monks, the key part of my invasion plan. In this first base, I lost 2 of them and was down to 5. But at least I had defeated the first enemy. Only 5 more to go. We trundled over to the second base, which was a bit more advanced. This one had a wall around it. No problem, my battering ram could deal with that. What I couldn't seem to deal with, it seemed, were intermittent attacks from Grey. Stupidly, my monks got blocked and I lost a few more of them. This was poor. My conversion force was barely enough for my plan to work anymore. Plus, villagers kept coming back to seal the hole in their wall, which was a major inconvenience for me. They fooled me once. Then they fooled me twice, teaming up with the yellow team who summoned another horde of jaguars to screw with my villagers. These suicide gate building villagers simply wouldn't stop trying to build a wall. Eventually I got around this by building my own gate there, claiming that bit of the wall as my own. A bit messy, but it did the job. But then, my biggest challenge yet. An enemy castle. One battering ram alone wasn't going to do this, and my army would get slaughtered by arrows before it would fall. And I no longer had the monk power to convert many enemies to my side. It would be a slow, painful process of stealing 2 or 3 enemies at a time every time they attacked me. It would take hours and hours and hours to do. The other option, I guess, would be to suicide rush my whole army and then to build another army of monks, starting the process again. That would also take hours and hours and hours to do, just like when I did it back in 2016. But I couldn't be bothered, so I just built a Wanderer instead. Now I can sit back and enjoy my accomplishment. I have truly mastered a game from my childhood. I'll be right back.